So I love diving deep into my characters. And why I love this is because it makes the story more nuanced and interesting. If we just take tropes, you know, like the hero, Luke Skywalker, and run him through the story, it's very predictable. We know that story, so there's a certain amount of comfort for sure when we grab a trope and run it through the mill of our story. But when we are writing either fiction or memoir, if we can deepen our awareness and connection to the psyche of the character or the narrator, it takes the story in ways that we couldn't have predicted, and it also makes the character more relatable, whether we like them or not as readers. So one thing I think is really important is to connect with the shadow side of your character. Not talking about like evil. So if you have an antagonist, an evil character, then you still want to do the shadow work and also connect with the goodness of that character, because we are all of these things. And if we read something that is just bad, if Darth Vader did not make that change at the end, softening toward Luke, he's just a bad guy and there's no empathy. So with your protagonist, I highly recommend you do some shadow work. Find out what parts of themselves they are afraid of. So you could ask your character, what are you afraid of? Meaning, like, maybe there's a fear of abandonment or a fear of losing someone they love, which is kind of the same thing. But what parts of yourself are you afraid of? That is the shadow work. And then consider, how does avoiding connecting with that part motivate this character? How does avoiding feeling those shadowy sides drive the narrative forward? So let's say there's a character who is got anger as their shadow, and they are so afraid of feeling it. There's a repression. So maybe there's a repression, maybe there's an explosion, but let's work with the repression. So if the shadowy side is the anger, and the character is terrified of that anger is still going to come out. The shadow still exposes itself. So how does it come out? So maybe the character becomes more controlling and more rigid, so that there's like a lid on the anger and doesn't, show it. So that would push the character in a particular way. Or if they are afraid of feeling empty and worthless, that could be a whole shadowy side. And then the behavior that comes out of that shadow may be addiction, it may be avoidance. So working with your character's shadow can really enrich your narrative. And I say this not just for fiction writers, but also for memoir. So if you're working in memoir, it's easy to kind of attribute the pain and suffering, our pain and suffering, to an external force. My father, did this to me, or my husband, da 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 da. But what is the shadow? How is the shadow contributing to the events in the life story? So it's not comfortable work. And I really recommend, if you are working in memoir, if you feel that you really start small, and even fiction can be close to the bone, to our own bones, you know? And so having support and just dipping your toe in, if it feels really scary, just dip your toe in a little bit at a time, kind of titrate the shadow work. But questions you can ask, if you interview your character, you interview your younger self, you can get a lot of fertile material and understanding of the character. So when I am afraid, I da 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 da. The parts of myself I am afraid of, da 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 da. When the parts of myself I do not want to see, da 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 da. The part of myself I want everyone to see, da 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 da. What I don't want people to know about me, da 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 da. Okay, take care, move gently into the shadow work, and you got this.